we're going to talk about the mechanized machine that targeted individuals are dealing with and all the things that involve it. We're going to try to do that. It's not easy, and I've got kind of a salient landscape to go through. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days because there's a lot of comments out there from people of how is this stuff happening? Why is it happening? Um, and what are the things that targeted individuals deal with? And it all fits together. And when I'm going through the comments, which I appreciate, by the way, when people interact with me in the comments and they give their opinions, by and large, that's where I get my motivation for videos and the live streams. And that's just how this works. And we're waiting for people to show up. We've got a thumbs up, but I don't see anybody out there yet. Who knows who's on the live stream? We've got one person, and I have no idea who it is. Welcome to the live stream. Usually I do these late at night, and today I'm taking a little bit of time off to rest my decrepit, worn out body. And we'll see if we can get some stuff done here. Got a little more energy, and no need for caffeine. When I get off work and I do those late night live streams, it's difficult. I mean, I'm tired, I'm worn out, I'm in a lot of chronic pain. So hopefully this will be a little more productive. And we've got some people out there. Okay, comrade, welcome. Jesus Christ. Of course, that's just a handle. I don't think he's come back yet, but it hopefully it won't be that long. And then we have Ash Nicole. Welcome to the live stream. Yeah, and in case, of course, you didn't hear the intro, we're gonna try to break down the machine, the mechanized ordeal that targeted individuals are dealing with, because it can get complex. And ashamedly, I make videos here and there, and it's kind of your guys' job to extrapolate the data and connect the dots and mishmash it together. If I was more organized and I had more time, I'd be able to make a video that breaks this whole thing down. It'd be like a 3-hour video with good audio and all that stuff and pictures. And in fact, I was looking at some Black Friday laptops yesterday, but I was just too busy. And Fridays are crazy for delivery guys, especially when people are shopping like that. Anyway, it was pretty congested, especially towards rush hour. Anybody out there have any burning desires before we get going on this? Anything to add? Any ideas? Any opinions to the mechanized machine that targeted individuals are dealing with? The hierarchy, the infrastructure, all the little things that go in to what we're dealing with. And it's not just targeted individuals. It has to do with everybody because it involves everyone. The fact that targeted individuals are a small minority of the population that are dealing with harassment, well, that's not the whole picture. Okay, we're just part of that. We are part of the menagerie. We are the unfortunates. We are the crazy people, right? We're those nutty people that are used for coercion. We are used to legitimize the psychiatric agenda into society as not just targets that are dealing with these things. It's everyone. Okay. Everybody is attacked. They're just not attacked in the same way that targeted individuals are. Children are being subjected to a lot of these agendas, whether it's the psychiatric stuff, the big pharma drugs, all these things, everything from drag queen story hour to a lot of the amphetamine-like drugs that are used to control attention deficit disorder, another fictitious diagnosis, in my opinion. And when you get into a lot of the stuff that targets deal with, concerning the assassination of their character and the use of psychiatry, you get into the drug aspect of it, right? And that involves a lot of economic corruption. There's drugs that when the patent runs out, they relabel that stuff and they just push it on a different crowd. Some of the SSRIs were like that. A lot of these drugs have dangerous side effects. I know I suffered from benzodiazepine withdrawal for a long time, and it was a nightmare. And it was an agenda, and the agenda is to make money, to obfuscate the spiritual reality, to obfuscate what is happening to targeted individuals in that particular sector. But in society as a whole, it involves a bigger picture, and you can see all these things melding together. It's an amalgamation of different agendas, different the social dynamics, all the way into the secret societies, and finally into the spiritual dimension. And let's see what's out there in the comments here. Steve Wells, welcome to the live stream. Okay. Well, one in the morning and one at night, right before bed. Well, that works. Yeah, I guess it's still morning. If you're a night owl like I am, this is early. Okay. Well, let's see here. We've got all kinds of things to talk about. Like I said, the mechanized machine that targets are dealing with is very elaborate. The scientific nature of gang stalking is obfuscated by the crude tactics that are sometimes used to harass people, whether it be just yanking your chain, getting you angry, destroying your personal property, criminal activity, breaking into your house, and so on and so forth. But of course, that's just for people who are in the beginning stages of that. And I think everybody underestimates what they're up against. New targets do not have any idea what they're playing with. Okay, I didn't, and I know a lot of people are out there trying to figure out what's happening to them. And I'm here for everybody. I'm here for the seasoned veterans. But a lot of times I put the focus on the new targeted individuals because they're very vulnerable and they are being manipulated. They are being reprogrammed. They're being destroyed. They are, dealing with some pretty crazy stuff that has barged into their reality. And how do you process all this information? That's really what you're getting into. And if you go out there online and try to educate yourself, you're going to run into a lot of different facets of gang stalking. You're going to run into a lot of different areas, whether it's the MK Ultra program or other things that are going on. And a lot of it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't paint a complete picture, in my opinion, for the targeted individual, for someone who is just been thrown into this meat grinder of harassment. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you can look at it in a lot of different ways. Hold on a minute. I'm actually cooking. I don't eat breakfast. I eat lunch. Hold on a second here. It's not like I'm making stir fry here, but I'm adjusting the temperature on this thing. I'm making stew. Yeah, you gotta love that. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. All righty. So, a lot of people ask the question, how is this stuff working? I mentioned that before. And in fact, I just got done answering a comment. I'm not going to mention, who it was. Not that it was bad. It's just someone's breakdown of what this whole thing is. And targets will leave their geographical locations, or they might leave their job or their neighborhood or whatever, or they might even leave their state, or they might even leave the country. And, how do you explain how this stuff follows around the target? How do you quantify the logistical scenario that targets are dealing with? And I often hear that from people when they make their videos. They'll give their testimony. or they'll be in the comments as to how much manpower is going into this thing. They're dealing with street theater, they're dealing with workplace harassment. There's a campaign in their neighborhood. It doesn't seem like there's anywhere they can go. And then there's different phenomena that targets run into. Maybe they do leave, and it's just a matter of time. Maybe a week or two, and then it starts up again. And then you can only come to so many different syllogistic conclusions of how this is happening, and it could be different. It's not the same. Excuse me. It's not the same exactly for everyone. There's going to be variations of this, right? Because the mechanisms are out there, in my opinion. Okay, the machine of harassment is out there for targets who are experiencing higher forms of harassment, but it might not apply to everyone in the same way. Okay, so when a target experiences that type of all-encompassing attack, in my opinion, that could work out it's in a couple different ways. One, you could set it up. Okay, so we'll say that you throw the spiritual foundations out in the sense that people are not like literally dealing with people who are oppressed by demons, in the sense that there's a communication from the spiritual dimension through these human beings to the target, which I think can happen. I think that happens as well. And when targets try to leave the country or whatever, they're going to extremes, trying to escape, and it's just everywhere. I think that at the foundation, that's always going to be there. We're going to get into that, but you could get a bunch of people together, and you could pay some people to harass the individual. You could profile them, find out all the places that they're going, and kind of break down their life, the restaurants they go to, the gas stations they go to, what's going on in their neighborhood, their schedule. You could get intel. You could break into their house before they even knew what was happening, and you could gather up information for directed conversations. You could hack their phone, and so on and so forth. Okay, and you could really give somebody some hell. Okay, you could really freak them out, right? You could even add in to that mixture electronic harassment with voice to skull or whatever, different little weapons. And somebody had a bunch of those. I think, um, gosh, I can't remember which channel it was right now, but there was a couple of them that showed all these different devices you could buy, and you could hit people with these different microwave weapons and frequencies. I don't know if it was legit, but it was horrifying to see that this stuff was for sale. Okay. But you mix in all those things, and you could really turn someone's life into a nightmare. Okay, I mean they're not going to know what's going on. So there's a lot of ways that this can break down. You could get into the government aspect where you got different secret programs that are going on, and people are subjected to a machine with a lot of resources. Okay, or you could be just dealing with the bigger picture, and there's already a machine, a mechanism. Okay. And I've talked about the synchronicities and the clairvoyant street theater. People believe their mind is being read. So that's, to me, when you get into higher forms of harassment that involve that kind of thing, when a target is having dreams, things are happening, they're having deja vu, they're dealing with synchronicities. There's a lot of things going on. And in my opinion, would be illusions to get them to believe that people are reading their mind and so on and so forth. That's like I don't know. It has to do with foreknowledge from the spiritual dimension. You're outside of space time, and you have all these things going on. That stuff, I think a lot of targets are dealing with that personally. I think that a lot of people underestimate what they're really dealing with, and when you get into that aspect of this whole thing, there isn't any getting away. Okay, you're not going to be able to run, to Russia or whatever. Snowden, for example, he exiled out of the country. But if he was a targeted individual, like a lot of you that are listening to this, whether you've been doing this for years or whether you're new at this, there is no exile. Okay. And anybody who's a targeted individual who's experiencing higher forms of harassment knows what I'm talking about. And I'm not cutting anybody down, but you can see a lot of videos out there where people talk about gang stalking, but they got girlfriends, they've got houses, they've got good jobs or whatever. They experience harassment, but you know what? The people that experience, the extreme phenomena of gang stalking, a lot of them don't even want to leave their house. A lot of them are dealing with dysfunction that, looks like mental illness, and they don't know what's going on. Okay. There is, a higher level of harassment for some people, and there are variations of these things. Okay. Okay. So, well, welcome, guys. I see there's some people out there making comments. Looks like we've got quite a bit more that have showed up. Okay. Well, that's good because we are getting into this whole thing here. And I've also talked about there's different ways of breaking down what happens to targets individualistically when it concerns just the method of invading their life. Okay, and that goes into the criteria of psychiatry to where there's that mechanism. Okay, so there's all these things that come together, right? So if you were gonna start in that arena, you just kind of try to break it down in a crude way. You would have the traumatic invasion. The target would be attacked. You might have some foreshadow. You might have suggestions that are thrown at the target before they experience that overt harassment to kind of prep the scenario. And I've heard targets talk about that where they might get little comments here and there, or things will happen to them, even maybe all the way back to childhood, where it will culminate in a type of crescendo, and then it's on. And then, it's just for that mental stew stage for later after the target is hit really hard and they are aware they're in that realization that they're being hunted down, and they've got all that time to think about what the hell has just happened to them. Okay. But you have that traumatic invasion. You move into the sensitization, you move into the conditioning, you move into the gaslighting phases where the harassment changes after the target is sensitized, after they're conditioned, and that's a very dangerous place for targets because they are being frustrated. They're dealing with deprivation, social deprivation. Their financial life is attacked. They're dealing with workplace harassment. The sense of injustice is built up to a place where I think a lot of targets are taken out, and that could be within the first 1 or 2 years. And that so you get the mass shooter, you get people who talk about this stuff, and then they're on paper is crazy, and the gloves are off, and the next thing you know, they're in a mental institution or in jail or something like that, and you don't hear from them again. Who knows what happens? Or there's other things that can happen. Maybe severe depression kicks in, and they consider suicide. God forbid. If anybody out there is thinking about that, these things are, the whole temptation to believe that you can't survive this is huge. I've had that happen to me. It just seems overwhelming sometimes. And targeted individuals try to, live in the future and speculate what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. That's something that I had to learn the hard way. You think that this stuff is just going to make you snap. You think that you won't be able to take it. You try to forecast what your life is going to be as a targeted individual. I see a lot of people doing that where, I don't know, man, I guess I'll just have to be a hermit until I'm 80 years old. And it's, you don't know. You don't know. Something may happen. There might be a disclosure. People could get, caught harassing you. Anything could happen. God could intervene. He could give you a supernatural provision of peace to where he can actually use this stuff to take you to a higher level where after this whole thing is over, you're going to look back and say, man, if it wasn't for that, if God didn't allow these things, he's not ordaining it, but if he didn't allow it, I would never have been able to get to where I am. This can work out for your benefit. So if you're out there and you're just depressed, and it happens to me, it ain't over yet. Okay. And, you get into that psychological, toxic soup that targeted individuals are in. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And then, of course, you can move on beyond that into the longer stages where you get into, wondering if you're even, on the same planet that that you were when you started this game. Okay. I've had that happen to me. I've wondered, did I die in some kind of car wreck or something, man? Is this real? Is it even possible? which goes into what we're going to be looking into. Because if you don't have the right salient landscape, if you're not looking at this stuff correctly, it's it's very likely that you're going to move in and out of psychosis either way, because you're dealing with isolation, you're dealing with possible covert drugging and poisoning. Just the social deprivation alone and the sleep deprivation that a lot of targeted individuals deal with is enough to clarify them, or I guess, classify them as legally insane. I can't remember what it is, but you go, what is it, 3 to 5 days without proper sleep, or you stay up for a certain amount of time and you're legally nuts. I've stayed awake before so long that my eyes literally crossed. Okay. And that, of course, that was, along with the effects of benzodiazepine withdrawal. I did that several times, and it compounded for years to where my mind was so shot. I mean, I've been down below rock bottom where nobody thought I was coming back. My IQ was down, probably between 50 and 70, maybe. You're dealing with a completely different animal. People don't even recognize me when they see me now. And I've talked about the fact that this harassment for me started back. Well, it started a long time before that, but the overt stuff, the aggressive stuff, started in '93, and I went through the typical stages that targeted individuals go through, and it was rough. It was very confusing. The only thing I didn't do wrong was to tell people about it. I didn't go tell anybody. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word for years, for well over a decade. And I did talk about certain things every now and again with people, but it would always be the same response. You're talking in circles. And the problem is you never know whether you're dealing with a perp or you're just dealing with somebody who has no idea that the stuff is out there. Because there are two groups of people. I've talked about that. There's actually, it's a little more diverse than that, but technically, you're looking at that all the time. You're either talking to somebody who doesn't know about it. You're dealing with people who are looking at you like you're nuts, because they just haven't been exposed to this stuff, or you're dealing with people who know. And there are a lot of them out there that know about this, in my opinion. And you can get into that phase where, you can derealize, people start believing they're, it's like a brain in a jar, or they're in a matrix. People are robots. You're dealing with a bunch of clones, and who knows about the scientific stuff that's going on. There's a lot of weird things they've been messing around with. So I'm not going to shoot everybody down on that. But I think for the most part, this stuff has always been there, but it is obfuscated and it is hidden. And when you get into people who try to break this down and say, well, I think that everybody's getting together and they're just organizing this stuff, or, it's neuromonitoring. Well, I think it's more than that. I think it was set up in advance. And I think it goes from the top down, from the principalities all the way into the secret societies of the government. And you get into the infrastructure and the social dynamics and the fraternal, clubs. And then, you got all that stuff. Okay. We're going to take a look at that next. I'm going to see what's going on in the comments out there. Okay. Well, looks like you guys have a dialogue, and that's okay. I'm just going to let that go. And I'm going to stay on this roll that I'm on. So after the psychological stuff, after that individualistic view of what the target is dealing with, the machine that they're thrown into, where the harassment changes around, they're on that emotional roller coaster. They're dealing with all the forms of deprivation. They've got the traumatic invasion, okay, and they're dealing with directed energy weapons. They're dealing with the street theater, the financial plan to maybe even put them on the street. A lot of targets end up homeless. A lot of that stuff, is just involved in the targeted individual aspect of it, but it goes from the top down. Okay. So technically, when you get into this whole thing, like I've said before, I believe that the machine, the mechanism is out there. Okay. You're thrown into the meat grinder. And it starts with the principalities and the powers And I've talked about that. When you go back, you've got the Garden of Eden. Okay, and of course, then the kingdom of darkness took control. Man was the image bearer, and then you have the spiritual aspect of this, where you have the kingdom of darkness taking control of the world, of the kingdom of Satan. Then you have the Genesis 6 account, where you have the mingling of the angelic realm with human beings. Okay, then you move into the Tower of Babel, and man didn't learn his lesson. Of course, he was supposed to spread out on the earth and multiply and be fruitful, and he didn't catch on. God disinherited all the nations at that point and handed them over to the kingdom, or the principalities and powers, which technically they were judged in Psalm 82, if you wanted to look at that, when their immortality was revoked. But a lot of things go into this, and it's pretty complex. I'm not going to focus in on that as much as I'm just trying to create a salient landscape to show you the progression of these things. And then after the nations were handed over, you had the kingdoms. Okay, so you have the spiritual dimension, invading the world. You have a bloodline thing going on with the mixture as far as the human element of that goes into the 13 families, by the way, which we've got to illustrate all these things, because there is a physical hierarchy that is going on in the world. Okay, but it started back there at the Tower of Babel. Okay, and that's what, especially if you're one of those people that gets into Freemasonry and all that, or the Rosicrucians or the Illuminati, it all goes back there to Egypt. So you had Egypt, you had Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and you get up to the modern day when you have the revived Ottoman Empire over there in the Middle East. You can look at that when you look at the Muslim nations. Okay, what does that have to do with you? Well, it might not have anything to do with your scenario or the New World Order, which is what you're dealing with, the deep state, because you're in the United States. If you're not in the United States and you're over in the Middle East, you're going to be dealing with some different stuff. If you're in Europe or something like that, you're going to be dealing with a different you're still dealing with the same thing, but you're dealing with a different tentacle of the same octopus. Okay. But that's what you're dealing with. So once you get, familiarized with what's really happening from the spiritual dimension on down to the human element, you have that mixture. That's where the bloodlines come in. Okay. And that goes back to Egypt. You have to know this stuff, because when you get into, even when you get into looking at politics or the Illuminati or some of that stuff, you can find that a lot of these people are related, and that's not a coincidence. Okay, if you're going to play poker, if you're going to play at the game, you've got to be invited to the table, and there's a way that people come into power. Okay, and there's a way that these things work. There's also just the government aspect of the world systems, and a lot of those people, contrary to what a lot of targeted individuals believe, don't know about this. There are sectors of the government and the political system out there that they don't know anything about this. They don't understand the secret societies. They don't understand how the Freemasonry is like invaded everything to the point where it's foundational in the infrastructure of what we're looking at, or the Illuminati, or that dispensation or dispensing of hidden knowledge and secret wisdom that deceives the elite that the Rosicrucians are in charge of, or the Committee of 300 when you get into these things. And it all connects. So when you're looking at, moving into the human element, of course, like I said, you have Freemasonry, and that's the infrastructure. And those guys, they don't all know all this hidden wisdom and secret knowledge. When you just get into the grunts, that's more of an integration into the social circle and the corporate aspect of the infrastructure of this world. And it's always been that way. The Illuminati used the Freemasons to recruit people. Of course, you move into the Illuminati, and then you get into the Rosicrucians. Then you move into the higher level where you have the Committee of 300. Then you get into high Freemasonry. That's different. Okay, those guys, that's where the occult kind of mixes in with all this, because a lot of people out there might, what about witchcraft? What about all these things that are involving Satanism and stuff. Is that just part of it for some people? Well, it's more in the higher levels of these things. When you get into the rituals and so on and so forth, when you get into Freemasonry, they're drinking out of skulls. You get into spirit cooking and a lot of weird stuff where you have the drinking of blood and other things. I'm not even going to go into that stuff. It's disgusting. And then you get into the weird, things where you're involving, the stuff that's going on maybe at the Epstein Island, that kind of, stuff that we're starting to, that's being uncovered. Okay. Where people get into Pizzagate and all these other things. And you got to be careful of the disinformation, but these things are out there. The occult does mix in with this whole thing, and it's all connected. Okay, that's why it's important to realize, the salient landscape that you're dealing with has a foundation. Okay, and it goes back to Egypt, moves up and through the secret societies. After you get into, the high Freemasonry, you're moving up to the bloodlines. Okay, which goes back into the infiltration into our world by the angelic. Okay, and that's, when you get into the spirits that are in the prisons or that have been held into Taurus or hell, right? Those were the guys that kind of started this whole thing. They were thrown in to hell or to Taurus or to the abyss, and they're waiting, okay, for their judgment. All the other guys are still running around. Okay, when you get into the spiritual dimension, whether you're dealing with the unclean spirits or the familiar spirits or the spirits of divination or so on. So those are the disembodied spirits of the half-breeds, okay? So when someone talks about, being delivered from an unclean spirit, that is not a principality and a power or a shadu or a shadim or a fallen angel, okay? That is something that came out of the Genesis 6 account, okay? Then, of course, they're going to be running around until the time of the end, and then they're going to be thrown into the abyss. That's when you get into the Gospels, for example, when Jesus came, right? He was the Messiah. He's the seed of the woman, right? That they were all worried about. And when he showed up, he went out of the territory of the Hebrews and he went across the Sea of Galilee. Everybody knows that famous story of when Jesus ran into the demoniac, right? The Gadarene, that guy, he was possessed by a legion of demons, depending on what place of the Bible you're looking at that. Okay. And they ran up to him. What do you want with us? Don't torment us before our time. Don't send us into the deep or the abyss. Let us go into the swine. And, interestingly enough, that the pigs that they were asking to be able to inhabit, a lot of guys will ask me in the comments, is it possible for demons to possess, animals and stuff? Well, yeah, it is. And that's when you're dealing with the unclean spirits or the familiar spirits or whatever. And it is possible for, in the example of Judas, where Satan entered into him, for example. They're not above doing that stuff. They can do that. But generally, when you're dealing with people, when it comes to gang stalking or whatever you're dealing with, when you're getting the clairvoyant street theater or you're getting, that weird stuff that target individuals deal with, where people will flip on them and they feel like they're in a different dimension or whatever, you're dealing, in my opinion, that stuff is demonic. Okay. And you're dealing with those unclean spirits. You're dealing with the remnant of those disembodied spirits after the Genesis 6 account. Okay. And what were they trying to figure out? Well, Jesus was going out of the territory of the Hebrews. And like I said before, when you get into Deuteronomy 32, the nations were divided up according to the sons of God. And that was, of course, a long time after the image bearer Adam, because that's what you're created in the image of God. We were the image bearers on the planet, and then authority and dominion was handed over at that point. Okay, so when you get into Deuteronomy 32, there was geographical territories that were handed over and ruled over by these entities. Okay, and you're still dealing with that. Okay, that hasn't gone anywhere. The only difference is you as far as being in Christ now, if you're a Christian, okay, you have authority to go into those areas and proclaim the gospel. Okay. But you're going to be attacked. You're going to be attacked in this world because they haven't been taken out of the world. Okay. They're still here and they are ruling over men. They are ruling over the world right now. And when you're dealing with gang stalking or you're dealing with some of the corruption that goes into the government or all the things that are going on out there, that's the breakdown. Okay, that's the salient landscape that you're looking at. It goes from the top down. It goes from the spiritual dimension into into the government aspect of it, which goes into all the things that targeted individuals are dealing with, and it involves a lot of things. Okay, it involves uh, the divide and conquer strategy that is used in Marxism. Okay, when you have the different social classes of people, you get into the philosophy or the destiny philosophy that the secret societies hold to. Okay, because a lot of that stuff is hidden. And when you get into the higher levels of Freemasonry, they believe that they have a rendezvous with destiny, with the Son of God, the oppressive, Christ is what they would look at. And they believe that there are just, a bunch of gods. It's kind of like Mormonism, right? Jesus is one option. And they believe that Satan was, he's going to be the ruler. Okay. And when you get into Mormonism, you see the same thing. Okay. He was rejected. He was like Jesus' brother, and he was cast down, and so on and so forth. And he became the enemy, of mankind, and he wants to take over. Okay, he's the other option of these Elohim that are out there, but really it's not like that. Okay, the polytheism is incorrect. Okay, now there are a lot of different beings, but of course God created everything, and there is no other creator God. Okay, there are disembodied beings or Elohim, but there are not, multiple gods. There's only one God. Okay, and you have the Trinity view on that. It's important to have the proper view on that. You move into social justice, and then you might even go into the area of psychiatry, and that's a lot of the stuff that targets deal with. All these things are agendas. Okay, and you can see the breakdown of all this stuff. The bloodlines, the 13 families. Really, when you're looking at this, as far as the human element, of course, that goes down from the spiritual dimension into the bloodlines. You get down into the government, you get into the institutions, you get into the fraternal stuff, and then you get into the social structure of society. So when targeted individuals are out there dealing with this, okay, and they can't get away. They are dealing with a machine or a mechanism that is literally already there. Okay. For targets out there that are wondering what the hell just happened to me? How did all of a sudden, just how did I get thrown into this? Well, that's how it was out there. It was waiting. And even if you want to get deeper than that, for targets who are experiencing heavy, higher forms of harassment, they have a plan for your life. Okay. You fit into that part of this menagerie that you're going to legitimize some of these things. People wonder, well, how does that relate with the occult? How does it relate with the secret societies? What's the purpose? Well, experimentation is one of them. Okay, a lot of targets are dealing with that. I talked about that before. When you have the infiltration of LSD and all this Marxist theology and the professors of the colleges, the infiltration into Hollywood back in the 60s, the 70s, that's not by mistake. Okay. But when you go beyond that, you get into the spiritual dimension where you're dealing with another agenda, and that is to take over and corrupt and destroy people and get legal leeway over geographical regions so that they can take control over, the infrastructure. Okay. Where, this little farm that we're running around in. Okay. They want control. They want power. They want legal leeway. They corrupt, man. They put their philosophy forward. They create all kinds of different false doctrines and so on and so forth, or philosophical ideations that people hold to. When you get into the polytheism, that's what you're dealing with. Okay. And like I said, at the higher levels of this whole thing, when people talk about the Freemasons, it's not crazy. Okay. The regular guys, like I said, the grunts, they don't know about any of this stuff. But when you get into the higher levels of Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and all that, it absolutely has infiltrated our government. Okay, you got the Skull and Bones, you got the Illuminati, you got all these things going on. You got the bloodlines. Uh, and even some of the more simple fraternal organizations, all of it's connected. It's all a hierarchy, and when targeted individuals are out there dealing with this stuff everywhere, they feel blackballed. They're getting harassment. They're going from job to job. They're dealing with all kinds of harassment. It's everywhere. It's invaded our financial institutions, which really, when you get into it, that comes before the government. I mean, you have people in power. You have different tentacles of this octopus involved in politics and everything. But the amount of money that is out there that has been acquired all the way back, like I said, even when you go back to Egypt, when you get into the higher levels of Freemasonry and the 13 families, you have a ridiculous amount of money and just natural resources that have been acquired. It's a war of attrition. Okay. And when targets are like, well, how much manpower could you throw? Well, that's what you're dealing with. This mechanism is already set up. The machine, the meat grinder you are dealing with is out there. You just didn't know about it. A lot of people are out there. They have no idea that it's there. I'm going to take a look at the comments and see what we got going on here. Yep. Wish I could say says it's typical for them to call erratic behavior schizophrenia. Well, yeah, and I think it was the last live stream I talked about the fact that your definition of schizophrenia. Uh, there are different things that go into that where people will try to throw genetics in there, and there are certain factors that would probably predispose people to this supposed schizophrenic diagnosis. But one of the things that's in there for the criteria of how people become schizophrenic is environmental factors. Okay, so technically, you could say that schizophrenia could be a result of gang stalking. Okay, because you're subjected to harassment, you're subjected to torture and trauma and deprivation, just like MK Ultra. And what happens? Well, people become dysfunctional. They become paranoid. A lot of things happen to people when you torture them. Okay, does that mean that you're just mentally ill? Obviously not. Does it mean you have some kind of organic brain disease that supposedly has no tests that can conclude that it's really there as far as imaging or blood tests or anything else? No, because what is it? Well, it's a lot of things. It can be spiritual oppression mixed with environmental stuff and gang stalking, which would result in somebody becoming dysfunctional. Okay, and that's one of the hurdles that targeted individuals would deal with, is that they do experience effects and become dysfunctional in areas in their life. You're not like everybody else. You're not being subjected, or excuse me, you're being subjected to things that other people are not being subjected to. Of course, you're going to be different. Of course, things are going to change in your life when you start getting gang stalked. Okay, it's not rocket science. Yeah, you're going to be a little paranoid. Who wouldn't be? Yeah, things are going to be different in your financial scenario. You can't go anywhere without being harassed. Okay, it's gonna change your life. Does that mean you're mentally ill? No. Excuse me. So that's a huge problem for targeted individuals. Is that not only are they faced with the task of trying to put this stuff together logistically. Not only are they, faced with the task of explaining why it is that there has been changes in their life, and trying to remain credible, by I've talked about that. You have to be the Hollywood targeted individual. You can't just walk around and tell, even if you believed some of the disinformation out there and said, "Hey, look at this video. Here's what's going on. Everybody's being controlled by a supercomputer, and satellites are beaming this stuff, and that's why I can't go to the restaurant because I'm going to experience food tampering, or that's why people are messing with me at my job or whatever." It's the government. Well, look, there could be a lot of things going on, but what happens when you try to explain your dilemma? You're going to look nuts. Okay, you're inevitably going to look like a Looney Tune. Okay. Other people either don't know about it or they're laughing at you because they're in on it. And so what do you got to do? Well, you have to make that choice. How am I going to explain the things that are happening to me? How am I going to, reconcile all these things? And then you got to deal with the perps. And mental illness and psychiatry are right there. Okay, it's the mechanism that is going to be used in the character assassination of the targeted individual. Well, that's crazy talk. Why would all these people be doing that? And the mechanism, that salient landscape that I talked about when I was breaking all this stuff down, is completely hidden. It is broken up. It is compartmentalized in a way. Like I said, this stuff is scientific. And people are being deceived, and targeted individuals are part of that menagerie where they are legitimizing not only for the perps people wonder, why is it that they get a little bounce in their step or whatever? Well, there's a lot of reasons. They're getting off on controlling you sometimes, but one of the reasons is that they feel justified in conforming to this machine, this mechanism that's out there, this satanic kingdom that is all around you, because look at what's happening to you, right? It sucks to be you as a targeted individual. They feel justified in joining and conforming to the machine, right? Because if they don't, they're going to end up like you, or they're going to end up like one of those people that go on the mass shooting or end up in a psychiatric center or whatever, in the mechanism of psychiatry. And that little tentacle that is there to discredit and assassinate the character of the targeted individual and make them look nuts. Another thing that they're dealing with, as far as that is other things that who even knows when you get into the benefits, whether people are being paid for this stuff or they're getting some type of, reward from the spiritual dimension or whatever. Okay. But that's what you're dealing with. And the coercion is used not only to justify the conformity, but to scare other people, right, into conforming. Or, when you get into people who are whistleblowers or whatever, well, you go ahead and talk about it. We'll just throw you into the meat grinder. How do you like your life? You want to throw away that mortgage that you're involved in? You like your family? Huh? Oh, you want to be a hermit and just run around and live in a mobile home somewhere, or in your vehicle as a targeted individual? Well, you better conform. You better shut your mouth, because it can happen. And the machine is out there. That's one of the things that's undeniable. As far as the experimentation, targeted individuals are also used for that, because they are developing some of these things. I'm not against technology. They are trying to figure out ways to control people, and they're experimenting with different frequencies and all kinds of different electronic harassment to use that to control society. Okay, technology has exploded, and I've mentioned this before. Technology comes from the spiritual dimension. Okay, so you're being used for coercion. You are being used to legitimize psychiatry and other things that are out there, right? Mechanisms that form the philosophical landscape that people are buying into. Because remember, the foundations of this whole thing is deception. And just because there are a lot of people out there, probably a huge percentage of the population, that are never going to experience gang stalking, it doesn't mean they're not dealing with this. They're just dealing with it at a different facet. They're dealing with it on a different level. And they are being taken captive and deceived, and they're going to be destroyed unless they see what's happening. Okay, unless they see the reality of the coming judgment, of the reality of Jesus Christ and the evil and the kingdom of Satan on this world that is manifested through corrupt government and all these other things that targeted individuals deal with. And I've talked about that before. In fact, I started out the program that there's a way that this can work out for your benefit. If you see these things and you escape the wrath of God, if you escape the evil and the corruption of this place, you win. Okay, they may look like they're getting away with this stuff. It may look like they're prospering. They're living in the mansions. They got all the money. You get into the Committee of 300, the royal family, the Council of 33. All these people are just floating through life. They don't have a problem. Well, I don't have to worry about that stuff. I don't know what your problem is. Well, it's going to come to an end. It's cotton candy. Okay. And you're in the carnival, and everybody's going to have to, they're going to have to pay eventually. Okay. I don't care how much stuff or cotton candy or whatever people are carrying around. Eventually, they're going to have to take a trip to the bathroom and get rid of it, and nobody gets out of it. Okay. Sorry about that, but don't be deceived. Don't be fooled by the menagerie. And targeted individuals are part of that, and they're being used for that. They're being used for experimentation and coercion, and they're used to legitimize and obfuscate this activity. When you get into psychiatry, think about it. What's the answer for all the people out there in those two groups? Well, the group that knows about it, they know what's going on. That's coercion, right? That's conformity. The other people, well, they're just crazy. No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as gang stalking. I don't know if people have told me that. There's no such thing as that. Get out of here. That's schizophrenia, right? That's factitious disorder. That's bipolar. That's crazy. Well, no, it's not. And that's the way it is obfuscated. Let's get back into the comments here. Okay. Let's see what's going on. Well, Windows NT. Technically, we are extraterrestrials. That's funny. We're extraterrestrials. We're life on a planet in the middle. Whoa, the comments are starting to shoot out there. Sorry about that. Man, I'm trying to keep up with this. Well, we're not extraterrestrials. We are, supposed to be, God's image bearers on the planet. Okay. And through Jesus Christ, like I said, when you get into the foundation of this stuff, that has been taken back. Even when you get into predestination, when you get into the Bible, a lot of people will get thrown off by words like chosen or election or predestination. When you get into Ephesians, you were chosen in Christ, and that he is the methodology of reconciliation of the image bearers or mankind to God, right? And he's the second Adam, in other words. So he already took care of this stuff. We're letting people figure it out. The gospel infiltrating the world is a way for people to be saved out of this thing, and Christ is going to eventually come back, and he's going to destroy the system that is set up. Okay, that's where you get into the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, where you start out with the Babylon head of gold down to the feet of iron and clay, and the rock comes in from outer space. The rock is Christ, and he's going to destroy the statue. The statue is a contingency. Okay, I've talked about that before. And technically, it doesn't start with Babylon. It starts with Egypt. So you have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, the Ottoman Empire. Technically, you could say the New World Order. Technically, you could say the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, the Committee of 300, the Council of 33, all that stuff, the Freemasons, everything. He's going to come in, and he's going to decimate this system, and he's going to set up his kingdom. He's going to do it. Okay, that's an undeniable reality that everybody's going to eventually realize, but a lot of people haven't woke up to that. Okay. When you get into the deception that is propagated by the hidden knowledge and secret wisdom, which is really just another way of serving this stuff up to people. Targeted individuals deal with a lot of weird stuff. Okay. They deal with the clairvoyant street theater. They deal with directed conversations. People seem to know what's going on. You're in a room with no windows, and people seem to be able to see how you're doing everything. Some of that stuff could be, technological, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, like I said, you have a spiritual foundation to this whole thing, and the rest of the world is dealing with the same type of trickery. It's just a little different. So when you get into the secret societies, they have the prophecies. Okay, they have those things. And I've mentioned before, when you deal with Paul and Silas in Philippi, right, they got thrown into prison there. A lot of preachers will preach that story, and they will tell everybody, oh yeah, they started singing, and the jail was broke open, and they were freed by the power of God. And well, that's true, and that's awesome. But the reason they were in jail is because they cast a demon out of a girl that was a soothsayer, a prophetess. a demonic prophetess in that area. Okay. And it wasn't just a shotgun technique she was using. And she had everybody in that area deceived. God basically set everybody in that area free, not only with the gospel, with a demonstration of showing everybody in that area how it was that that girl was able to pull that stuff off. She was able to prophesy things, and she could see things in advance. It was just like the stuff that targeted individuals deal with, except she was just, like a psychic or whatever. It's like our modern day, and not the phony ones. I'm talking about there is real stuff. And you get into the occult, you get into the secret societies, and that's the stuff that deceives them. And they believe it. Okay. And it's very convincing. Okay, let's see here. Reconciled says, "How long have you been drinking blood?" we got a chain yanker in here. Whatever. I'm sure everybody, that's one thing that targeted individuals have to learn how to do, and that is to ignore. And I don't. Maybe you're in a dialogue. Maybe I'm misrepresenting that comment. I apologize because I can't keep up with all these comments. We've got quite a few people in the live stream, so these comments are flipping by me. But you do have to ignore this stuff, and that goes into following protocols. Targeted individuals are subjected to a lot of different forms of stimuli. Okay, we've mentioned all of those, and there's a lot of themes that go along with this. Okay, it's not by coincidence that you have different themes and niches. It's not by coincidence that targeted individuals are part of a little community. We're all experiencing the same thing. That's not a coincidence, and it's not a mass delusion. Okay, when you get into other areas of society, it's not a coincidence that there's little cliques and niches here and there. Okay, it's all part of a type of menagerie that is set up, and there are different themes. There's different philosophies. You can see this stuff. I've talked about the correlation effect. Targeted individuals will deal with different forms of stimuli. You might be subjected to just the things that are popping into your mind, or intrusive thoughts, or your sense of peace will disappear, and you will start feeling uneasy or panicky or whatever. And then you start dealing with other things, and people start attacking you. You'll deal with directed conversations. You'll deal with street theater. You'll deal with stalling tactics. You'll start dealing with workplace harassment. And all this stuff will come at the targeted individual. And then the disinformation. Okay. And you're supposed to correlate those things together and make a connection in your mind, because that's the way your brain works. And gang stalking hijacks the physical mechanisms that you're subjected to. You have instincts. Okay. Your brain works a certain way. You're just nothing more than electric current and chemicals that are reacting in your body, and you're subject to those things. Whether you assign significance to this stuff is really the game and the battle. Okay, a lot of people will deal with that in religion, or not religion, but Christianity. Religion is of the devil. Okay, there's only one true gospel. There's only one true God, and that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. But when you get into different feelings, and when you get into all this pragmatic stimuli that people are subject, well, I don't feel saved. Well, I don't know. I don't feel like reading my Bible, or I feel like God is angry with me. You can feel a lot of things. Okay, but what does the Word of God say? It says that He desires all to be saved, that He has forgiven your sins, past, present, and future. That He loves you, that He cares about you, so on and so forth. But that stimuli that comes from the outside in is designed for you to construct a proposition. Okay, and that's going to be the axiom of deception. Okay, just like the secret societies, just like the gang stalking. There's a lot of targeted individuals, I would imagine, who struggle with that. Why is God allowing this, or whatever? This is very abrasive. It's horrible. It's painful. That comes into the axiom of faith, right? You have to believe all these things that are in the Bible, despite what you're looking at. You have to believe that even though it looks like the gang stalkers are getting away with this stuff, and the secret societies are ruling the world, and all these things are just going on, and there's no justice for you, that there will be. And there absolutely will. Okay, let's take a look and see what's going on. Okay, we have another dialogue in there. Looks like we have some harassers in there. And I might be wrong about this, but I'm gonna get rid of one of them that seems to be at the very least argumentative. And I apologize if I didn't recognize a lot. I haven't been looking at the comments because I've been trying to explain this whole thing. And yeah, you've got a lot of little people that are trying to hijack and distract people. Fortunately, the individuals who are going to watch this later don't have to deal with that. I'm not going to be distracted by it. Whatever. Okay. Oh yeah, reconciled says Windows. You're a perp. Gee, I wonder. Yeah, I could speculate on who that is, but I don't really care, and I don't like to give shout outs to the obvious little triangle of perps that I deal with on a regular basis on the channel. And it's sad. I've talked about that before. That you would think that these people, um, they would have more to do with themselves. That's very perplexing, and it also gives the targeted individual an opportunity to look in to the obvious corruption and the obvious dissatisfaction that the perps have in their own life, which should make you feel a little bit better. I mean, think about it, guys. Why, on Christmas Eve, we had somebody come in and do that. You'd think people would have something better to do with themselves on Christmas Eve. That's undeniable proof of the misery and dissatisfaction that is at the heart of all these people that are trying to convince you that they're living life and skipping their way through it and they're happy and that you should have conformed or whatever. And it's not all it's chalked up to be, is it, guys? Because if it was, these people would be out there living their life. They would be having fun. And there's so much proof surrounding the perp, right? That they are miserable and that it's not working out for them. It's definitely not working out. I mean, it's hard to be a target individual. It's definitely abrasive existence that you're living in. But look at they have all this. They're not getting gang stalked, right? They're not dealing with food tampering or workplace harassment or any of those things. They are dealing with spiritual attack, though, and it's obvious because look how miserable they are. Look how pathetic they are. Look at the obvious misery. And I've used this as an illustration that, like, when I'm out of work or whatever and I'm delivering food, if I screw up and somebody doesn't get the food, the way they wanted it or whatever, there's a mix up on the order, I feel horrible, right? It haunts me. It bothers me. And that was a mistake. It was an accident. I can't imagine going out of my way to put someone in a state of anxiety or depression or just to harass someone that by my own, admission and testimony that I thought was mentally ill and accuse and harass and be hostile with them and just, try to yank their chain. Because that's when you look at, what these people will say, well, you guys are just crazy, though. You need to go get treatment. You need to get medicated or whatever. But if they really believe that you were mentally ill, you think they would probably be a little nicer to you if they thought this was really from some type of organic disease, or physical ailment or whatever, some type of sickness that was out of your control, that they would be a little more compassionate. It's proof they don't even believe it. It's proof, of the contradiction that you're dealing with. And it's also proof of the misery and discontentment that they are dealing with as they have conformed to this machine. They're not happy. It's something you have to remember when these people are skipping around you. It sucks to be you. At least I don't have to deal with that. Well, yeah. Well, you're obviously dealing with something because a happy person, a person that was truly fulfilled in their life, wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be able to. It would be a logistical impossibility. Let's get back into the comments. Well, guys, I know I've skipped a bunch of comments and I apologize for that because I just can't keep up with it. We've got more people on the live stream than we normally do. Hit the like button, smash that like button, as they would say, and this will hopefully it'll get propagated out there. I swear this channel's been shadow banned. And it's like I put tags in there. I try to do everything, and I can't even look up my own videos. So let's try to fight back on that one. Everybody hit that button. And anybody have any burning desires? Anybody have anything to add to this? Lisa says, "Good point." You can't argue with the obvious contradictive nature of the perp. They can't hide. They can't hide from me, and they can't hide from you. They're miserable. They are horribly miserable. They're pathetic. My gosh. Yeah, cotton candy. Cotton candy. Yep. It's nothing but air, guys. And it's going to be gone eventually. And if you do what I'm telling you, and you remember that, you have to look at this stuff properly, it can work out for your benefit. Okay. Think about it positively. You're going to spend the rest of eternity ruling and reigning with Jesus Christ. Tell me that's not good news. Let them have the cotton candy, right? Yeah, yippee. It ain't working out. Okay. I wouldn't even bother. You know why? Because that's just bait. And you guys know who I'm talking about. Why would I interview anybody? Especially, why would I even waste my time thinking about a perp? Okay, that's the protocol I'm talking about. Everybody gets caught up, with Gorilla Boy, because he likes to harass targets. Well, he to be honest, he doesn't even really care. Okay, he's just getting in your head. It's just like the rest of the perps you're dealing with. He doesn't sit around and think about this stuff. He does use it for venting or whatever. The guy gets on and vents his emotions and whatever. And he's obviously got a lot of anger and hostility and dissatisfaction in his life. It's unfortunate to see a talented person that's intelligent like that end up that way. Okay. But it is, why would I bother? Why would I bother even thinking about any of the perps that I deal with? I don't. And I don't for a reason, because it's not worth it. Because it's obvious to see what's happening. I wouldn't even bother. And the funny thing is, when you deal with the critics of gang stalking, you present to them evidence. Okay, and you guys out there who like to talk about gang stalking or whatever, you want to go try to communicate this with people, you're going to run into this. There's a complete, to the level of gaslighting, denial of obvious evidence that is out there, whether it be the voice to skull technology or MK Ultra or things that have already been found out, or the machine that is involved in the Lutheran Synod, where they were using these types of techniques for the hierarchy of the Lutheran Missouri Synod. All of that, but they won't talk about any of it. They'll just deny, and that's what you're going to run into. It's classic, narcissist behavior. Okay, deflection, denial, gaslighting. They'll try to redefine everything. They'll try to minimize everything. It's a waste of your time. Anybody who's out there playing games with any of these perps, don't even bother. Don't do an interview. Don't do anything. Don't think about them. Forget about it and move on with your life. I couldn't care less about what any of those people think, period. And there's more people connected with them than just the ones that are obvious and abrasive too. And I know who they are. And I've warned people about that. I've warned people, when you get into a lot of the disinformation that's out there, or you get into channels that want you to show your face, and some of it might be innocent. Some of these people might just, be trying to avoid the perp stuff. Maybe they just want some accountability, but it's suspicious to me, and it's also dangerous. Okay. And When you talk about the lawsuits or whatever, okay, I've already gone into that. Lawyers will swim through shark-infested waters to get money, and if there was a way to make money off something like this in a class action, it would be out there on television and everywhere, and you would be applying for it. Anybody wants your information or you to sign some petition or something, it's bait. Either that or it's just plain ignorance. And you got to watch out. The targeted individual community has become a hunting ground. Okay. I'm telling you right now, I know what I'm talking about. It's not just those obvious perps, it's targeted individuals out there or people who are masquerading as targeted individuals. They're masquerading as Christians. They're masquerading as people who have information for you, and it's disinformation. Okay. Part of the menagerie, and I'm not going to call them out. I'm not going to bother. Okay. It's the same in the religious community. Why don't you call out false teachers? And well, there's a lot of things going on with that. Okay. And when the apostles disappeared, what did they say? After I leave, Paul said, wolves are going to creep in and they're not going to spare the flock. They're going to introduce destructive heresies like forbidding people to eat meat or to get married and so on and so forth. You go on down the line. What about the condemnation of false teachers by the apostle Peter that would come to swift destruction? Well, you can see that's not happening now because you can see all kinds of false teachers out there that have had ministries for decades, right? And they've got a ridiculous amount of money. Okay. What's my point? My point is that you have to know the truth. Okay. You have to seek it out. And that involves both, the word of God and what's going on as far as your gang stalking. What's really happening? Can we just throw the spiritual application out the window and say it's all a supercomputer? No, it doesn't work out logistically. Are all these people government employees? No. Can it work out that way in certain scenarios? Yes. Okay, there's a mixture of these things. And shuffling through that, as well as the perps and all that other stuff, that's something you're going to have to do. And I give advice to people and warn them about this stuff out there. I don't have to get in a fight with Gorilla Boy or anybody else. I don't have to. I'm not going to waste my time doing it. I have other things to do. That's just a distraction, period. Okay. Well, guys, let me see. I've got one comment out there. I was going to end the live stream here. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah, I'll just let that one go. It's not too wild. Well, I appreciate you guys interacting with me. Any thoughts on the salient landscape? Any comments about this mechanism, this machine that targets are dealing with it? I did a very crude breakdown of what it is. It's like I said, if I had time, I would make an instructional video on this that would be probably hours long with documentation and everything. And maybe one day I will. In fact, I would like to think that, me extrapolating all these things together, including the philosophical stuff and the things involved in the occult and the secret societies and all of it comes together. And it has to be arranged properly. Okay. In order for the targeted individual who's experiencing higher forms of harassment to understand what is happening to them, they're going to have to extrapolate this stuff and they're going to have to form that salient landscape of what is happening, how they're being manipulated, how society is being manipulated, and how all these things can be logistically possible rather than to just freak out and, grab an AR-15 and start shooting people, believing that everybody's working for the CIA. Okay. It's more complex than that. And like I talked with an individual earlier in the comments, there are certain scenarios where people are organizing against you and you can be experiencing local harassment. Okay, there's different facets to this, but technically the mechanism is already there. Technically the machine, this meat grinder that you've been thrown into was there before you got there, and it is there waiting for targets. And that's how you explain all these things that happen to people who experience the higher forms of gang stalking where they're getting the clairvoyant street theater. They're having the synchronicities. They're dealing with all these things. They're experiencing the control programming. They're dealing with the workplace harassment. All that stuff fits together, and it all works together, whether it's technology or whether it's people being covertly drugged or the invasion of different philosophies into this world. All that stuff, the government aspect, the kingdoms of the earth, it all fits together. Well, thanks, guys, for participating in this live stream. And for all of you who are watching it later, I would like to thank everyone who helps support the channel. The link is in the descriptions. In the description. Sorry, guys. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.